Kyle.
All right, now we're going to talk about
Kyle
dressing
and
frames.
Yes.
Okay, so dressing frames are just what they sound like. They learn how to do dressing activities with them. And there's an array of different dressing frames. I'm going to show you a few of them here, but these are not even all of the ones that we have. We do have some toddler-specific ones. So I'm going to show you the difference between what the toddler frames look like versus what the Children's House frames look like, so we can kind of compare. And then the reason that we do dressing frames versus just working on self-dress is it's typically much easier to work on these skills when it's not on your body. So like looking down and trying to button or zip is more difficult than being able to sit and just focus on something that there's no urgency to have to get dressed right now.
Yeah.
You can take your time on it, and then the process of doing this is much easier. So the very first frame, which I didn't see in the classroom, maybe you guys
I
have
have
it
this.
here.
Yeah, we
Velcro.
have
I have
the.
Velcro.
I
The
didn't look in the
Velcro,
right
yeah.
spot. So the Velcro frame is going to be the very first one. It's the easiest one. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in Children's House, and we can compare the difference. You know what? I'll actually introduce the snap, because the snap is set up very similar to the way that the Velcro is set up.
Velcros, yeah, I
so
was
that we
gonna say
can
that's
compare.
just have three like.
Yeah, so that just has three. They're separated, so there's this space in between. It makes it really easy to get to, and these buttons are really big. So these are the snap frame. You can like be really responsive when it makes the snapping sound. That's a big deal. You are way more energetic than I am when it comes to that. So. But the Velcro one is very similar as far as you almost don't even have to do anything with the Velcro, because if you close it, they just like automatically Velcro. It's more so about like taking the Velcro apart and then just understanding how they like overlap and they stick together. So that was kind of fun. But buttoning, I get this question a lot, and I don't think that there's really a right or wrong answer for this as far as which side should the button and the snap piece be on. So like the top part, should it be facing this way or should it be facing this way? If you're wanting to move as left to right as possible, I'd probably have it this way, because this is on the top and it would open easier versus I kind of had to push it that way first to get the other side out. But snaps are different on boys and girls clothes, so there's really not a right or a wrong answer to that. Was that a discussion you guys had recently?
No, Mr. Tony
Yes.
told us the difference between boys and girls zippers
Oh,
on my
gotcha.
jacket. Yeah, and I was like, what? I was like, you learn something new every day. I didn't know that.
You didn't
I
know
was so shocked. No. I was like,
Well, why would you know that?
I don't
You
know.
how-
Well,
I don't
he
know.
had
I just
stepped
no
in
one
the
ever-
room and he was helping get the kids' jackets and stuff on, and he put a jacket on. He goes, "Why does she have a boy's jacket?" And I was never paying attention. I was like, "Huh?" And he goes, "Well, the zipper's on the left side, and it should be on the right side, or opposite, whatever." And Kathleen was just like,
What are you talking? I was like, what? And he was like, you never knew that? And I was like, no.
Why
Like,
would I know that?
and I was like, why? And why is it like different for boys and girls? And he was like, I don't know. I guess just because boys like don't think as much or whatever.
Because
So that's why it's like
he
the
said
easy-
boys don't use the right side of the brain.
yeah, or something like that. And I was like,
What?
Yeah,
I
I was
really don't know
shocked.
why it's different. I don't
that's
get
so
it.
interesting.
But it is.
Yeah, maybe just to make a
Differentiate?
yeah, like this is
It's
clothes, girls
kind of
things.
sexist.
But, I mean, that's.
I don't know. That's
I mean,
I was
yeah,
like so
yeah,
shocked when I
it's-
heard
what
that.
does it
Though. I've
matter?
never heard that before.
It's so funny. But yeah, buttons and zippers are on the outside.
But then I wore my jacket outside, and I was like,
I didn't
well,
know
was like,
buttons were
well,
on
no,
the
I
opposite side
zipped up my
either.
jacket, and I was like, well, wait, my zipper's not. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was like, this is a boy's
Wait.
jacket.
It's a boy's jacket.
I
So
was
then,
like,
boys and girls button shirts, the buttons are on different sides too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm like,
Like
Yeah,
I
I don't know why
never
people like looking
knew
at it.
that. That's wild.
Yes.
Like what?
Yeah,
is that
I
about?
think so.
Also,
What is
the
the
thing to
point
think
of
about here is when you're doing it like to somebody else, like basically that's what you're doing when you're working on a dressing frame. It's the opposite of what it would be if you're doing it to yourself. So if I'm looking at somebody else like this on me, it's going to be
Like-
the opposite way.
Yeah.
So it's good practice for them to work on it both directions for buttoning and zipping.
so when you're giving a lesson, could you do it both ways? Like go through it one way and then
Sure.
turn it around and
Yeah,
then
and if
show
they
them the
do
other
really
way
good with
too?
one way, then flip it around and yeah.
Okay.
Or you can work on this one. Yeah, I don't know. So that's button. The zipper frame I really love for the toddlers because one of the biggest complications is getting it started. So this eliminates that difficulty because it doesn't open all the way. So it stops right there. So you don't
Maybe
actually have to do the connecting
Like that
piece.
one in our room, the zipper one, because Addie loves to do the zippers on their jackets.
Does Aliyah do it? Because she unzipped
Yes.
her jacket. all the
Yes,
time.
yes, they all do
So
it.
it's kind of hard to get started actually.
Addie will go around and like be trying to take off their jackets, and they're like freaking out, like, "What are you trying to do to me?" And I'm like, "She just wants to help."
Interesting. So this one you could also show them how to do it the opposite way. I don't know if that would actually be closer to doing it on yourself. It's just a different process. But it's still good just for the seeing the up and down of the
Well,
zip.
yeah, because I mean, you think about like when you zip up your pants, like you're going
Your
up
jacket.
and, like this way. Or when you
Yeah.
zip your gun, you
So you can show them both ways
Yeah.
on that. So pretty much all of them you could show them on both sides. And then we have a cool buckle one here too, which this one can be a little bit more difficult. You have to have a really strong squeeze release pincer grasp here. But I really recommend opening it all the way up, showing that there's this empty space in the middle, and then you can close it back. So I show you the difference between some of them. So here's the Velcro one. It's going to be a little bit more complicated. The bottom half, or the top half, depending on which direction you have this, is similar to the toddler one where they just have to be laying on each other and they automatically Velcro. And then this one has a little loop feature.
I don't think I've ever seen one like that before.
So definitely more complicated.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
That's
a
cool,
more
though.
difficult one.
That's really neat. I like that.
And then the snapping frame, they're obviously much smaller snaps, and it's also a continuous fabric, so it's a little bit more difficult to get your fingers
Between that.
in between them, yeah. Even more difficult to take apart. So on this you can, I struggle with this because when you're doing it on something else, it's actually easiest if you just line it up and push down. But obviously if you're snapping something on yourself, you're not just gonna like push on it. Like that wouldn't feel very good. So although yes, that would work, and for your youngest kids, if you're just showing them how things go together, that's okay. But I wouldn't give a lesson on it that way because that's not the way that you're gonna have to
Right.
snap it when it's on yourself. So actually figuring out how to grasp the fabric and then push it together using both of your fingers. It's one of those things I learned over the years because like I actually had kids like trying to snap it on. I'm like that doesn't
Yeah.
feel
Go home
good.
with like these little bruises that look like someone's like been
Little
poking
finger
your.
marks, yeah.
Yeah.
Not fun. And then we have a button frame. This one's done backwards. That's really interesting.
Maybe someone's left-handed.
Well, no, it should be that like it's upside down. So before you get it out, make sure that your frames are done properly to show them.
That you're supposed to be checking all your work and
Yeah,
stuff.
right?
Making sure it's
I
okay.
know. So again, this could go either direction. I don't know if this is because how I'm used to it, but I find it easier to do like the left to right.
Yeah.
Putting it through, finding it and pulling it. But these ones are really important to practice because again, yes, it's a very simple process for us to do, but to be able to show it in a way that makes it clear for the child. I'm putting it here, I'm closing it. Like you can't really verbally describe how to do all of that. And so being able to show the process repeatedly in a very
Isn't there a safety
Concise way.
pin one?
mm-hmm.
That one scares me.
Yeah. Don't worry, you won't do that with toddlers.
No, I know, but even in children's house, I was laughing.
They're very
thinking
blunt. Like if you open them up, they're not like a sharp
Okay.
point. They're pretty blunt.
Oh my goodness. That's so fun. In children's house once, and one of the kids had it, and the teacher was like, "Nope, you're not ready for that."
Yes.
And it
I
was so
still-
funny. And I was like, "Oh gosh."
You need to master all the other frames first.
Oh, that's so funny.
But it's good to explore all the frames to know what they all are. These ones, I don't even know what this is called exactly. It's almost like a hook and eye, but it's with, what's this material called?
Not paracord.
Elastic.
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 Thank
I was like, I'm like,
you. I can't even think right now. Elastic. So once your kids get to the point where they're really good at practicing the frames, obviously having all of them out so that they can work on them whenever. These are really helpful if you have a child who struggles with a specific step in the dressing process. So just keep that in mind if they're really struggling with something specific that comes with like buttoning, whatever, then I would get out dressing for them to practice on. And then lacing. There's a time frame as well. I'm not going to get into that. They'll cover that next week in the advanced practical life for Children's House. You may get to the lacing part. I doubt it. I don't really think
Probably
that
not.
twos would get to lacing.
I could not see your kids doing that.
Yeah, I mean, unless they've totally mastered the lacing frames that we talked about last week, the lacing
The
cards,
lacing
the
Yeah.
sewing cards. I would say that this is probably going to be too complicated.
zigzag
In
Very
21
like
years of
zigzag
my
pattern.
experience,
Yeah,
I've never had a toddler
Yeah.
master it.
Yeah, no, lacing
Like lacing
cards.
cards.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
To
well,
I mean to
I'm
get to
gonna
where they
say
would be
this.
at that where they would be at that
Yeah.
point.
Yes. So these are going to be your kids who really are getting to the point where they should be using laced shoes that they can start lacing and tying on their own. But lacing comes first, and then we would go into tying. So we'll cover that next week in the Children's House Practical Life class.